You saw yesterday the arrest that happened in Minnesota for those agitators that stormed the church, and people said, what about Don Lemon? Well, a judge has ruled shutting down the option of arresting Don Lemon. We'll get to that, but you know who seems really upset about that? Don Lemon.
I stand proud and I stand tall. This is not a victory lap for me because it's not over. They're going to try again, and they're going to try again. And guess what? Here I am. Keep trying. That's not going to stop me from being a journalist. You're not going to diminish my voice. Go ahead, make me into the new Jimmy Kimmel if you want. Just do it.
Make me the new Jimmy Kimmel, which just feels like you're begging for some attention, for some relevancy, Don Lemon, because it's the first time your name has been in the news in how many years? Since that Elon interview was really the last time we even heard from you. And now you got a little bit of attention. And much like a lot of these people, these quote unquote journalists, celebrity journalists, who can't seem to escape their own ego, they have to push it further and further.
He was the one that also, in that interview where he said the church deserved it because they're a bunch of white supremacists, said, I don't know why this is all about me. Why is it all about me? Oh, because I'm the biggest name there. I was the biggest name there. From the beginning, it's been all about him. You've seen it. You saw the way that he went and did all these interviews after. But yes, it is true. A federal magistrate judge in Minnesota declined to sign off on the criminal complaint against Don Lemon, and we're going to get into that as well. How do you feel about that? I feel like if it were a magistrate judge in the District of Columbia after maybe something that Republicans did, they would have been more than willing to not pay attention to journalism or claims of that nature. And in reality, it's really, really hard to say what Don Lemon did was an act of journalism, as he calls it.
Make me the new Jimmy Kimmel. That's exactly what he wants. I think when they show their cards so easily, just saying, please keep me relevant, keep me in the news. It's all I want. It's not about creating news. It's not about covering news. It's about making myself the news. It's really disheartening, but also not unexpected. This has been Don Lemon's character for a while. You can go back to why he was even removed from CNN in the first place. This is an ego-driven moment. I say it not even loosely. When he went into that church and essentially, hounded the pastor and told the pastor that, these people are just exercising their First Amendment right, their freedom of speech. It shows how profoundly he does not know how the law works. And a lot of great commentators have a teleprompter in front of them, are really good at doing that, but haven't taken the time to actually learn the laws of the land.
Here's the difference. Jimmy Kimmel made a statement that was in poor taste in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, and his company put him on suspension based off of his statement. And now he's back on air. Don Lemon was fired from CNN for a host of reasons. Not this. He's been trying to make himself relevant for a long time, but he went inside the church where there was violations of the law. 3 people have already been arrested for that, for various crimes, not just violation of the FACE Act. He himself was getting in the face of the pastor when the pastor was still trying to get people out of the church. It wasn't like he said, Pastor, can I get an interview with you over here now that everything is calmed down? It was in the middle of it while the pastor was trying to take care of people that were frightened. And the pastor even says, I need to go take care of my flock. But that's where, as you even mentioned, he says the misunderstanding of the Constitution by saying, well, people are doing their freedom of speech and right to assemble in your church service, as if that's how that works. But the two analogies aren't analogous. They are completely different. Jimmy Kimmel was removed from air, suspended briefly for a comment. This is going
by
in.
The way, went on the air and apologized, crying in tears. Now, whether that was legitimate or not, I think we can now look at time may tell otherwise. But at least in that moment, not only did he have to be suspended from air, he went on and a pretty big mea culpa and was visibly crying, apologizing for what he had to say. Whether that was the network making him or not to keep his job, time will tell. But in that moment, That's what he had to do. He didn't go on there and say, I believe what I believe. I can say whatever I want to say. He actually went on and did quite the opposite in that moment and said, we made a mistake.
They weren't trying to pursue criminal charges against Jimmy Kimmel.
No.
This is a completely different circumstance. He's trying to elevate his status, even though I think people watching our show wouldn't say Jimmy Kimmel has that high of a status. He does have a television broadcast on broadcast.
Still, it's a couple million people watching him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this is someone who has become irrelevant. And even the stuff he was saying afterwards, filming the child that was being comforted by the kid's father and saying, oh, look, they're uncomfortable. I bet there's some trauma. That's the point. He was
that's where
engaged in this. It wasn't just reporting on it. He was a part of it.
Yeah, I lost all journalistic respect for Don Lemon in that moment where you are celebrating the traumatization of children who are just going to their church service, kids that probably had no choice whether to be there or not, certainly didn't understand what was going on. And these are kids that are living in a time where it's not necessarily safe to be in their own school, certainly not safe to necessarily be in their own church. And now they're experiencing firsthand, instead of going, oh man, that's really upsetting that this has to happen. He's going, look at that kid over there who is traumatized. But that's the point. Shake things up. I mean, that's a summarizing a quote, but I'm sure we can find here. Yeah, here it is. Let's go to bite 4.
This guy here, look, he's hugging his kid. And I just imagine it's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here. But again, careful, it's very slippery right here. Yeah. It's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here, but that's what really, careful, please, really slippery. Not kidding. That's what protesting is about. And so.
Yeah, he says it's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here, but that is really what protesting is about. That is a moment that, again, I lost all feelings towards Don Lemon in terms of any sort of at least journalistic respect. Not that I had much to begin with. He's been rude and obnoxious for years and years and years. But in that moment, you start doing this to children. Yeah, you got no love for me.
At what point does John Lemon actually exceed the ruling of being a journalist and then being someone could be prosecuted?
I think it's a blurry, and it's also a slippery slope. You got to be careful. But when he was part of the mob invading, knowing the plans, going in there with them, and then intimidating people, I think that's where probably the line is. However, a judge ruled the other way.
You have to be able to look at them in context in the cases, but you can't, someone like Don Lemon, 100% say, me going in, trespassing, engaging in this, supporting it, saying it was because it is a white supremacist church, and then also try to say, I was just documenting it, I was just being a journalist. No, he was being an advocate and a participant who had a camera crew with him. And that is the difference here. And I'm surprised to some degree that the magistrate judge did not sign off on this arrest warrant, but I don't think the Justice Department is done here.